Welcome to the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I'm Brandon Jaffe. Join us as we explore relationship and mental health issues by weeding out the trends in the mental health industry to uncover what truly works in improving our emotional well-being and relationships. At Inspired Resolutions Counseling, we specialize in providing interventions and resources for families with teens, focusing on topics such as teen mental health, parenting challenges, and family dynamics. I want to dig into something that most of us, we deal with it, but we don't really slow down long enough to understand the chaos that happens when kids, especially teens, come home and completely fall apart. And why, despite our best efforts, so many of our quote unquote teachable moments fall flat or totally backfire in most cases. There's two major parenting shifts I want to hit hard today. If you can wrap your head around these and practice them consistently, it's going to radically shift the emotional temperature in your home. First, giving your child space to release energy, physically, emotionally, or both, before expecting calm, maturity, or compliance. And second is timing your conversation so that your words actually land instead of getting lost in the middle of a meltdown. Now, I don't want anybody out there to think, oh yeah, I've heard this before because we're all doing gentle parenting and we know our kids. That's not what this is about. I want the mindset to be figuring out what works and when it works. This isn't about gentle or non-parenting, parenting, or whatever the current trend is. Let's start with chaos that a lot of you know all too well. Your kid walks through the door after school or practice, and within minutes they're yelling, ignoring, slamming cabinets, nitpicking their siblings, or flopping face first right on the couch and refusing to do what you ask them to do, whether it be chores or homework or whatever else it is. And you're left wondering, what the hell just happened? They were fine earlier. They can pull it together for their coach or maybe a friend's mom and dad. Their teachers say they're respectful. Why do they fall apart and create chaos and become a totally different person at home with us? The reason is because that's when the quote unquote mask comes off. Now, I don't like to say that. I think it's more that there are parts of us that we all do better out in the world a lot of times than we do at home with the people we see day in and day out. But for the purposes of this podcast, just imagine that there's a mask that comes off, right? They're working hard. When your child is 6 or 16, they're constantly managing themselves out in the world. They're trying to meet social expectations, suppress big reactions, navigate a lot of sensory stimulation that we never had to deal with. And they're trying to keep up with performance pressure. For some kids, this burns through their internal fuel tank by noon. But they keep going because of the shame and the fear of, again, taking off that mask or showing people the worst part of them. And so by the time they walk through your front door, they see you, they're completely done. And so what we forget sometimes, I believe, is that home is where we all should be going to decompress. Home is where, hopefully, if we are creating the right vibe in our homes, where our nervous system finally gets to release. But when our kids release, it often looks like emotional shrapnel flying everywhere. They don't walk in and say, wow, I'm really dysregulated from holding it in together all day. They come in swinging or crying or shutting down or pushing other people's buttons. And if we're not ready for that, we react, we escalate, we take it personally, and we start barking orders or giving lectures. And now we're in a power struggle with a child who's in a stress spiral. Okay, so let me reframe this for you. The meltdown at home is not a moral failure. It's not always about disrespect or defiance. It's often a nervous system trying to recover. And we can either support that process or get in the way of it. Now, this comment kind of feeds off of another podcast that I did. But I am telling you that my community, most likely your community, maybe your family, is scheduling our kids too much, way too much. And we had this really cool movie night in my neighborhood, and it was on a big screen, and all the kids got to sit down and watch, and it was Sandlot. And of course, that takes place in simpler times, but that really speaks to my point. Sports and extracurricular activities are essential. They're important. They're good for the community. They're good for the mind, the body, but we have taken it too far. Those kids in Sandlot playing, coming together during the summers and having these adventures and building bonds, that was awesome. But we have basically taken the professional sports mentality and applied it now to our kids, which is wreaking havoc on their nervous system also. So they're upticked at school, then they've got to hurry up and get stuff done and eat really quick, and then they got to get off to their practice. And this isn't just for a season. This is several seasons throughout the year, sometimes all year long. And we do it in the name of making our children better. But I would argue that if your child melts down often at home, it is time to rethink how often they are stimulated, which goes against some professionals' mindset. Some professionals will say if your child melts down and blows up, they need to be involved in more things and they need more stimulation. But I don't agree. I don't agree at all. And again, I think we're pushing the envelope a little bit too much. I digress. I'm going to give you an example that I often use in therapy. Let's imagine Sarah is the mom of, let's say, 6-year-old Ethan. At school, Ethan is a dream, follows directions, gets along with others, regulates himself really well. But the moment he gets home, it's like a switch flips. He's running around the house, jumping on the furniture, picking fights with his little brother, yelling when things don't go his way. And Sarah is frustrated. She thinks, if he can behave at school, why can't he do it here? And she wonders, is he manipulating me? Is she doing something wrong? Does she need to be more strict? And that's where a lot of parents go to rather than just doing boundaries in a healthy way. They get to punitive tactics and rewards, etc. But that's another podcast. So what's really happening is simple. Ethan is expelling all the pressure he stored up during the day. School took everything out of him, and now he needs a release. And this doesn't just apply to kids, teens, little kids. Teens do this. They're just less obvious about it. Sometimes they're not even less obvious about it. But the teens, their release looks like sarcasm, withdrawal, the door slamming, shutting you out emotionally. And while they might not be running around bouncing off the walls, the pressure still needs to go somewhere. So let's talk about what actually helps for a moment. First, stop expecting calm behavior the second your child walks through the door. Instead, remember that there needs to be a decompression window. And so that might be letting them go straight to their room, not getting in their way. And by the way, don't start listing off everything they need to get done and do. And, hey, you didn't turn in your homework, so you need to be able to do this. And you better get your room clean. And I told you this morning. The nagging happening right after they get home from the day isn't going to work. And it's causing more damage, and it isn't making it more likely that they get things done. Some kids need loud music, believe it or not. Some need movement. Some just need to talk for a minute about anything, everything, nothing. It's important to not instantly label them as rude or inconsiderate. Just take a step back and try to remember the child development pieces that are at play here. For younger kids, usually movement is everything, okay? And if you can create something cool, I remember a while back, I was doing these animal crawl races in the hallway with my daughter. I don't care if it's a mini trampoline, wrestling on the carpet, or racing around the house, just being silly, being active. And oddly enough, those things regulate the nervous system, especially when they become a part of the routine. Routine is important. Routine. For teens, They might need more of an independent outlet. Some might need to work out right after school or play the drums or zone out. They might have to have conversation with their friends. I don't know. But what gets parents is the fear that if they don't get to work right now on their homework or they don't do their chores right now, it's not going to get done. And I'm not saying that that's not a battle and that's not a thing. But I want you to remember to shift your perspective in terms of what might be going on. I want to say something that's kind of hard. If we don't give our kids healthy ways to discharge that energy, they will find unhealthy ones. Now, that is so hard because by the time they're a teen, you don't have all that much control. I get it. It might be that you're in a position where they don't listen to anything. Unfortunately, it's important to build these habits, these routines early on. And if you haven't, it's important to have the conversation. It's important to ask for help. And it's important to not give up. The goal is to stop reacting to the chaos and start building healthy structure. Let's say that it either works or it doesn't work, or you're on their way to helping them get regulated after school or after a long day. That leads us to timing. Most parents, and I've said this before, try to teach in the middle of crises, right? In the middle of a fire. And then you're shocked when your kid doesn't hear you or blows up and things get worse. Here's a common issue. You have a teen, let's say Alex, and he's 13, and he storms in after school, throws his backpack and yells, "I hate my teacher," and heads to his room, and his mom hears the tone and the disrespect and immediately follows him to his room. And "You don't talk like that. You got to calm down and tell me respectfully what is going on and what happened." And Alex doesn't calm down. He screams louder, slams the door, kicks the walls. And now mom feels really disrespected, really hurt, and really furious. And this goes on for 30 minutes or maybe a couple of hours and nothing comes of it. Why? Because mom tried to have a rational conversation with a kid whose brain has been hijacked by his emotions. His internal systems are all haywire. He's feeling defeated. He's feeling frustrated. And parents do this all the time. I think the thought process is if we don't correct them now, we're letting it slide, and that's not good parenting. What you're actually doing is throwing logic at a brain that is basically offline. You're making it less likely that they get to a place where they are willing and able to hear you. When a child or a teen is flooded or in survival mode or protective mode, they are not filtering. They are not thinking clearly. They are not receptive. Even if you have the perfect words, they can't process it in the way that you wish they could. That's just fact. You can't change it. You got to deal with what is in front of you, not what you wish would be. So instead of confronting in the heat of the moment, please take a step back. Please give space, even if they don't deserve it. Please let the storm pass. This mom could have said, "Okay, you're upset. I'm going to give you space," maybe not directly to the teen, but in her head or maybe mumbling to herself, and reminded herself when he seems ready, I'm going to ask very simply, "Do you mind sharing with me what's going on?" Or just, "Hey, I can tell you're struggling. Let me know if I can help." And it might not be till the next day or the day after that, or maybe next week that the lessons and the teaching moment comes in regarding this incident. That isn't excusing disrespect, because you can still set a boundary on disrespect. You can still make the choice to not interact when you're being disrespected, but you're prioritizing regulation and the relationship over the need to teach a lesson. And that, oddly enough, makes it more likely that the lesson gets taught. In fact, it makes it more likely that the teen is able to come to healthy conclusions on his or her own. The best conversations with a teen sometimes don't happen face to face. They happen while driving or while walking or folding laundry, or there's something about that side-by-side activeness that makes the pressure go away. It creates more safety. And when a teen feels safe, like they're not going to, I don't mean safe like they're not going to die. I mean safe in terms of they're not going to hear the nagging lecture. They aren't going to have to spend the next 2 hours explaining themselves or learning the lesson. That's when they actually open up and will remember some of the lessons you've already taught them. Parents' instinct is to demand respect and remind the child of the house rules. But doing that rarely, if ever, de-escalates, and it is not influential. And what we teach here at the center is we teach parents to be more influential in the long run. I would love for a parent in this position to maybe at night gently knock on the door. Hey, that was intense earlier. Let me know if you are willing to talk. That comment and that moment is more likely to create connection. I will never encourage a parent to let your child treat you like a punching bag, abuse you emotionally or verbally. Boundaries matter, expectations matter, but a healthy boundary doesn't require them. You can follow through silently. And so your reactions or your response usually isn't needed. Okay, there's a time to teach, there's a time to hold boundaries, there's a time to circle back and process, but it's all after that wave has passed, not in the middle of it. Your job is not to control every behavior, it's to create the conditions that make emotional regulation possible. It's to offer, the kind of leadership that understands the timing, the structure, and just kind of has that presence and isn't searching for perfection, but is strategic and consistent in presence. Ooh, I like that. Look, let your kids have an outlet for energy and stress before you expect them to become composed. That means tolerance sometimes. Rely on your boundaries, but set healthy, reasonable boundaries. Remember to have conversations when they can hear you, not just when you feel that great need to talk. Let your home be a place that it is safe to fall apart and be the worst version of themselves. And walk alongside them as they build themselves back up. Here's the truth. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to understand the rhythm of your child's emotional world, so to speak. And it is our job to respond with patience, consistency, and know the timing. I know that some of you parents are going, well, I've tried all that, and I'm exhausted, and I'm getting beat up every day, and there's no hope. And I get it. So will you please just make one small adjustment today? Sometimes that small adjustment consistently changes everything. The chaos in your home isn't a sign of your failure, but it is a sign that what you're doing is not working. Even if you feel powerless, you're not powerless. You're not failing, but you do have a responsibility to figure out what might work, to learn how to parent from the inside out almost. Now, most of you are doing a lot better than you think, and that line from feeling like it's always chaotic to it's feeling so much better isn't as far away as you think. So keep with it, and I appreciate you listening to me today. And again, I cannot emphasize enough, take that one small step.
The Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast is an Inspired Resolutions production, hosted by Brandon Jaffe. Edited and mixed by Natalie Atkinson. Music by Natalie and Sean Atkinson. Inspired Resolutions Counseling is based in Yorba Linda, California. Whether you're interested in joining our group, seeking therapy services, or exploring more of our resources, you can find us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Inspired Resolutions Counseling.